Chapter 1. Rejected under the blood moon. The worst part about getting rejected by your fated mate isn't the burning pain that rips through your chest like a silver-coated dagger, it's the silence that follows. The kind of silence where everyone is watching. The kind of silence where your knees hit the sacred moonstone floor in front of your entire pack. Your heart shatters audibly, and all you can hear is the faint sound of your dignity cracking into 1,000 pathetic pieces. And maybe the snort of your best friend choking on her gum in the back row. Zariah Moonstone, I, Kalon of the Stonebrook Pack, reject you as my mate. Kalon's voice rang out again, cruel and too smooth, as if he'd practiced it, as if he enjoyed it. I stared up at him, blinking stupidly while the mark on my neck, the one that had flared just moments ago when the moon goddess revealed our bond, sizzled out like a cheap candle. He looked good. Of course he did. Tall, broad shoulders, perfect jawline, abs probably sculpted by the wolves of Olympus themselves. His black hair was artfully tousled in a way that screamed, I have great genetics and no shame. And right now, those piercing green eyes looked down at me with the kind of contempt you reserve for a wet sock or a coupon that just expired. You're rejecting me? I croaked. The entire pack stood in silence, the glowing moonstone circle humming beneath us, intensifying my humiliation like it had a personal vendetta. I don't want an Omega mate, Kalon said smoothly, brushing imaginary lint off his ceremonial jacket. Especially not you. Ah. There it was. The punchline, and as if the universe decided that wasn't humiliating enough, a gust of wind blew my skirt up Marilyn Monroe style. I slapped it down, stood up, and cleared my throat. Cool, 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 I said, blinking back tears and forcing a dead smile. Just for the record, you look like a budget Thor with unresolved mommy issues. A few wolves choked. Someone gasped. My best friend Tova let out a scandalous wheeze. Kalon's perfect jaw twitched. He didn't respond. I didn't wait. With whatever dignity I had left, I turned on my heel, stormed out of the sacred circle barefoot, because of course I'd kicked off my shoes when the bond first flared, and flipped off the moon goddess for good measure. 3 days later, do you ever stop glaring at your espresso machine like it personally betrayed you? Tova leaned over the tiny counter of Moon Brew, the only werewolf-owned cafe in the entire town of Ashgrove Falls. My face was reflected in the chrome of the coffee machine. Frizzy black curls in a messy bun, faded hoodie, and still puffy eyes from crying into a tub of triple fudge. No, I muttered, slamming another coffee cup down. This is what heartbreak looks like, Tova. It's violent, it's caffeine-fueled, and it doesn't end until the chocolate croissants are gone. Tova, a chaos-wielding witch in a bubblegum pink crop top and heels too high for daytime wear, popped a gummy bear into her mouth and sighed. You could curse him, she offered helpfully. I've got a painful itching in embarrassing places spell I've been dying to test. I'm not wasting a spell on that cockroach. Oh, come on, she grinned. What if I make his junk sing opera every time he lies? I laughed, for the first time in days, until the bell above the cafe door chimed, and he walked in. Not Kalon, worse. Alric Drakemore, the alpha billionaire of the Drakemore Pack, CEO of Drakemore Enterprises, cold, untouchable, always dressed in black suits that probably cost more than my apartment. He was the kind of man whose presence made rooms fall silent and women forget how to breathe. And he was currently dripping wet, scowling, and holding an empty coffee cup. Which one of you brewed this insult to caffeine and sent it to my office? He growled. Tova promptly pointed at me. Traitor, I might have added extra cinnamon, I mumbled. Alric's storm gray eyes narrowed. It tasted like regret and powdered lies. I blinked. I'll take that as a compliment. You shouldn't. He dropped the cup in the trash like it had offended his ancestors. Then he turned and walked out. And just when I thought the encounter was over, the door slammed open again. I need a new assistant, he said. You start Monday. I choked. Excuse me? You ruined my coffee. You're already the worst part of my week. Might as well get paid for it. And just like that, the coldest, richest, most dangerous alpha in the region hired me as his assistant, not because he needed one, but because the moon goddess clearly had a twisted sense of humor. Chapter 2. Alpha of Control Issues and Office Chaos. The mansion loomed in front of me like something out of a vampire's Pinterest board. Tall black iron gates, gray stone walls, ivy crawling up the pillars like it was contractually obligated to look spooky and expensive. I half expected to see lightning crack behind it just for effect. "Are you sure this is the right place?" I asked the Uber driver. He blinked at the building like he wasn't paid enough to care. "It says Drakemore Estate on the gate, ma'am." I gave him a smile, stepped out with my backpack slung over one shoulder, and slammed the door shut before I chickened out. "Assistant to the alpha billionaire," I reminded myself. "You can do this. Just survive a week, and maybe you'll finally have enough money to move out of the depressing studio apartment with the raccoon that keeps stealing your socks off the balcony." I pressed the buzzer. A voice crackled through the speaker. Deep, bored, male. Name: Zariah Moonstone. The assistant. You know, the one you emotionally blackmailed into corporate servitude because of cinnamon? A pause. Then the gates creaked open. Okay, so he was expecting me. The inside of the estate was just as dramatic as the outside. Think dark wood, glass, leather, and a chandelier so huge it probably had its own insurance plan. I wasn't even fully in the front hallway before a butler, with silver hair and a judging aura, appeared from nowhere. "You're late," he said flatly. I was 5 minutes early. For Lord Drakemore, that's considered late. "Come, I'll show you to the Alpha's office." "Okay, rude." But I followed. We walked through endless halls, past glass doors and mysterious rooms. I was definitely not rich enough to enter. Finally, we stopped at a massive set of black double doors with gold handles shaped like wolves. The butler pushed them open, and there he was, seated behind a sleek black desk, with 2 monitors, a gold pen in his hand, and a look on his face like someone had just asked him to explain feelings. Alric Drakemore, the Alpha, billionaire, perfection in an Armani suit, and my new boss. "I expected you an hour ago," he said without looking up. "I was told to come at 10. I meant mentally." "Oh, well, then I'm 3 days late." That made him look up. His eyes, stormy gray, intense, unreadable, locked onto mine. "I don't tolerate tardiness," he said. "Then we're already off to a tragic start." He blinked. I didn't flinch. "Checkmate, cold CEO man. Your desk is outside this office. I don't do small talk, I don't celebrate birthdays, and I drink my coffee black. No cinnamon, ever. I'll write that down on my don't get fired vision board. You're not here to talk back. I'm not here to worship you either." There was a silence, a heavy one, and then a twitch of his lips. Not a smile, not quite, but close enough to make me blink. "Your first task is to handle my schedule," he said, handing me a tablet. "Meetings, mergers, and damage control." "Damage control?" He arched a brow. "You'll see." 3 hours later I saw. His calendar looked like a war zone. Who the hell sets a Wolf Council merger meeting at the same time as a crisis PR call and a territorial negotiation with blood-borne rogues? I asked aloud, stunned. "I do," came his voice from behind me. I yelped, spun around. There he was, leaning against the doorframe, sipping espresso from a mug that said Alpha Fuel. "Why would you do that?" I gaped. "Are you trying to die from stress? Or is it a weird alpha dominance thing? Like, look at me, I don't need sleep, I eat spreadsheets for breakfast." He sipped, didn't deny it. I gawked. "You need help. You're here, aren't you?" "No, I mean like therapy." Again, the twitch, lip movement, almost a smile. I was starting to think this man only smiled when insulting others or watching enemies fall in battle. He stepped closer. I could smell him now. Cedar, storm, and something that made my knees debate whether to remain functional. I hated it. "What are you doing tonight?" he asked suddenly. "Why are you taking me on a hot date to the council chamber?" He raised a brow. "No. You're accompanying me to the annual ball of the 9 packs. I require a date. It's political." I blinked, laughed, choked. "You want me to be your date to a royal shifter gala? You think that's a good idea? I don't make mistakes. I make sarcastic comments and eat croissants in formal wear. This is a terrible idea." His gaze sharpened. "I don't care. You're mine tonight." My heart skipped. Wait, no. Don't get excited, heart. He didn't mean that kind of mine. Probably. "Fine," I said, recovering. "But you better have a dress." Because the only thing formal in my closet is a pair of sparkly flats and a bridesmaid gown I used to mop up wine stains. "I'll have a selection sent to your room." Room? I thought I was commuting. No. You live here now. You're on call 24/7. I opened my mouth to protest, but then... Granny Yuna's rent due. My car's broken muffler. The sock-stealing raccoon. Fine, I snapped. But if this is some kind of alpha kidnapping plot, I want you to know I bite. His eyes gleamed, something dark and wicked lurking behind them. I'd like to see you try. Later that night, Tova was FaceTiming me from her bubble bath when I showed her the closet. Oh my hex, she whispered. Is that a Dior moon silk gown? I read about those in Vogue for werewolves. It's supposed to shimmer with your emotional energy. It better shimmer with don't talk to me unless you're emotionally stable, I muttered. What's he like? She whispered, splashing bubbles. Cold, broody, bossy, like Batman but with better skincare. And hot? I sighed, devastatingly. Girl, you're doomed. I picked up the dress. Yeah, I murmured. I think I am. Chapter 3. Dress to Kill. Dance to Survive. The moon was full. The gown shimmered. And I, Zariah freaking Moonstone, was standing on the grand marble steps of the Midnight Howl Ballroom, dressed like a queen and feeling like an undercover raccoon who had snuck into a 5-star gala. The dress was a deep blue-black, the color of the night sky right before dawn. It clung to my curves like it was painted on, with a slit that went all the way up my thigh like it had somewhere to be. The neckline dipped dangerously low, the sheer sleeves clung to my arms like a second skin, and silver embroidery shaped like moon phases danced along the hem. My hair was twisted into a soft updo, curls pinned with silver combs shaped like wolves. My makeup was subtle but sharp, dark eyeliner that said don't test me, and red lipstick that said you already lost. And Alric Drakemore? He hadn't said a word since I walked out of the guest suite. Not when I put on the earrings, not when I strapped on the heels, not even when I tripped on the carpet and caught myself with the grace of a sleep-deprived cat. He just looked. And that look? That was the problem, because it burned, like a slow, crackling wildfire under ice, controlled, contained, but if it ever broke free, Goddess help us all. You're staring, I said as I slid into the back seat of his obsidian SUV. I'm calculating, he replied coolly, following me in. Calculating what? The damage I'll do to your reputation when I inevitably spill champagne on a dignitary? The impact of your entrance, he said simply, voice low and smooth. And the number of alphas you'll draw to you tonight. I blinked. That's a weird way of saying I look nice. You don't look nice. I turned to glare at him. He leaned in, expression unreadable, voice a whisper. You look like a goddamn weapon. The Ball of the Nine Packs wasn't just an event. It was a battlefield in heels. The ballroom glittered under massive crystal chandeliers shaped like inverted moons. White marble floors reflected soft candlelight. Pack banners hung from the high vaulted ceilings, each stitched with symbols of power. Fangs, claws, stars, swords. Werewolves in couture flooded the space, all teeth and velvet, dominance and charm. Alphas mingled like politicians at war. Betas held champagne flutes like they were knives. Omegas smiled with razor-sharp beauty. The moment we stepped in, every head turned. Alric, in his matte black suit and tailored coat, exuded power like a drug. His silver tie pin, an obsidian wolf's head, gleamed like a warning. And me? I felt like a lit fuse next to a bomb. Whispers rose like smoke. Is that Alric's new assistant? She's stunning. She's Omega. He's never brought an Omega before. She smells like cinnamon. Goddess, is he mating her? My pulse thundered. Alric leaned toward me, his breath brushing my ear. Smile. I am smiling. You look like you want to stab someone. I do want to stab someone. Perfect. Let's dance. We moved like something out of a fever dream. Alric's hand found the small of my back like it belonged there. His other hand clasped mine, firm, steady. The orchestra swelled, and suddenly we weren't surrounded by wolf royalty. We were commanding them. I don't know how to waltz, I hissed under my breath. Yes, you do, he said. And somehow, I did. We moved in sync, step after elegant step. I didn't know if it was the magic in the room, the pull of the moon, or the infuriating man guiding me like I was made to follow his lead. But I didn't stumble once. You clean up well, I murmured, eyes locked on his. So do you, he said, spinning me out and back in effortlessly. Too well. The alpha of the Crimson Fangs hasn't stopped glaring at me since you walked in. Oh no, I gasped mockingly. A rival alpha? What will we do? "Don't tempt me," Alric said darkly. "Why? You'll growl at him in French?" He smirked, and my heart stuttered. Because it wasn't a cold smirk. It was a real one. Warm, dangerous, wicked. That was when I realized I was in trouble, because this wasn't just a job anymore. It was a game, and I was starting to enjoy losing. We were halfway through a second dance when a new scent cut through the air like acid. My heart dropped. I turned, and there he was, Kalon, my ex-fated mate, looking sharp in a deep burgundy suit, hair slicked back, eyes glittering with malice and... jealousy? "Oh no," I whispered. Alric stiffened beside me. "That him?" he asked. I nodded once. Kalon approached. "Zariah," he said smoothly, "didn't expect to see you here, or dressed like that." I smiled, sharp as a dagger. I could say the same, except for the looking good part. Kalon flinched. "You're with him?" "She's my assistant," Alric said coolly, wrapping an arm around my waist. "Just your assistant?" Kalon said, smirking. "You know, she's none of your concern," Alric growled. The air cracked. Magic surged between them, alpha to alpha. Pressure pressed down on the room like a storm about to break. Everyone nearby paused. I swallowed hard. "I think I'll go get some air," I said quickly, trying to slip out. Alric's hand caught mine. "No." That one word made my heart trip. I looked back at him, and his eyes, goddess those eyes, were not cold anymore. They were blazing. Possessive, protective, mine. Not pretend, not for show, real. I shivered, and in that moment I realized something terrifying. I didn't want to escape. I wanted to stay. Chapter 4, The Kiss That Shouldn't Have Happened. I didn't know how I ended up alone on the balcony. The scent of jasmine drifted through the midnight air, mingling with the sharper musk of dominant wolves and chilled champagne. Inside the ballroom, laughter echoed, soft music played, and the world spun on in glittering gowns and territorial standoffs. But out here, it was just me, the moonlight, and the sound of my heart racing like a wild thing in my chest. Kalon's sudden reappearance had shaken something in me. Not because I still wanted him, hell no, but because seeing him, dressed in wealth and arrogance, reminded me of every moment he'd made me feel small, unworthy, replaceable. And yet, here I was, wrapped in silk worth more than my entire apartment complex, standing on a balcony that overlooked a city I used to clean toilets in. I was someone now. I wasn't sure who yet, but I was no longer the girl Kalon rejected like yesterday's meat. "You disappeared." I turned quickly. Alric stood in the doorway, the light from the ballroom casting golden shadows across his face. He looked less like a billionaire CEO and more like a creature carved from myth. Jaw tight, eyes unreadable, power simmering beneath the surface. "I needed air," I said. He stepped forward. "So you could run?" I crossed my arms, so I could breathe. There's a difference. A pause. He came closer. Too close. His scent hit me again, pine and snowfall and something darker, something old. My omega instincts reacted before I could shut them down. My body leaned in even as my mind screamed danger. "You're trembling," he murmured. "No, I'm not," I snapped. "You are." He reached for my hand. I should have pulled away, but I didn't. His palm was warm against mine, grounding. Too intimate, too steady. "What Kalon said," I began, voice faltering. He almost exposed me." Alric's jaw ticked. "I'm aware. I didn't mean to cause problems." "You didn't. He did." The way he said it, like it was final, absolute, made something flutter in my chest. "But people are going to talk," I whispered. "About you and me. They already are. And you're okay with that?" His gaze pinned me. "I hired you, didn't I? Brought you here, danced with you, defended you. What do you think, Zariah?" I swallowed, hard. "I think you're going to regret it." His eyes darkened. "The only thing I regret is not doing this sooner." And then he kissed me. It wasn't soft. It wasn't sweet. It was wildfire and thunder, hands in my hair, mouth claiming mine like he had a right to. Like he'd waited just long enough and had finally reached the point of no return. And me? I kissed him back. Gods, I kissed him back like I'd been starving for him. Like every breath I took before this kiss had been wasted. My fingers tangled in his lapels. His arm slipped around my waist, pulling me flush against him. I felt his chest rise and fall, fast, uneven, like he was losing control for the first time in a long time. It should have scared me. Instead, it thrilled me, because this wasn't just a kiss. This was a claim. Then he pulled back, just enough to look me in the eye. And that's when the panic hit. Because Alric Drakemore wasn't supposed to kiss me. He wasn't supposed to want me. I wasn't supposed to want him back. "This is bad," I whispered, breathless. "Terrible," he agreed, voice like gravel. "Don't ever do it again." And then he kissed me again. Harder. A loud crash echoed from inside the ballroom. We broke apart like teenagers caught making out behind the gym. Alric's phone buzzed a second later. He glanced at it and cursed under his breath. "Security breach," he muttered. "Stay here." "Wait, what?" But he was already gone, storming back into the ballroom like a predator unleashed. And me? I stood frozen on the balcony, lips tingling, heart racing, dress clinging to sweat-damp skin. Everything inside me felt like it was spiraling. Desire, fear, hope, regret. 1 kiss. 2. And my world had shifted. I didn't go back inside. I couldn't. Instead, I found a quiet hallway near the servants' exit, sat on a velvet bench, and stared at my shaking hands. What was I doing? This wasn't a fairy tale. This was real life. And I was just the Omega assistant to the richest, most dangerous alpha in the region. No one would believe I wasn't using him. Hell, I wasn't even sure I wasn't. Because what did I really want? Revenge? Respect? Love? Before I could spiral further, a familiar voice cut through the hallway. I knew it. Kalon. Of course. I stood slowly, spine stiff. "Knew what?" I said tightly. "You're sleeping with him." I kissed him. He smirked, stepping closer. "Does he know what you are? What you've done?" "I haven't done anything wrong. Lying to an alpha? Pretending you're just some little Omega secretary when your bloodline—" "Don't!" I snapped. "Don't you dare." His smile turned cruel. "Oh, Zariah, you think you're clever, but Drakemore's smart. The moment he finds out about the Moonstone line, you're done." I stiffened. He knew. He remembered. "You wouldn't what?" He purred. "Tell him you're descended from a royal pack line? That your blood gives you rights to alpha territory?" I lunged forward and slapped him. Hard. He staggered back, more from shock than pain. "You ever threaten me again?" I hissed, "and I swear to the moon, I'll show you exactly what Moonstone wolves are capable of." He laughed, wiped his jaw. "Oh, Zariah, it's too late for threats." And then he turned and walked away, leaving me shaking, terrified. Because if what he said was true, then Alric had no idea what kind of trouble he just kissed. Chapter 5. The Billionaire's Wolf and the Moonstone's Secret. I barely slept that night. My head spun with Kalon's threat, with Alric's kiss, with the ghost of a war I thought my bloodline had buried a generation ago. But secrets don't stay dead in the shifter world. Not when they're tied to power. Not when they're tied to me. I took the longest route back to my apartment, ducked every limo that passed, and nearly threw up in the trash bin outside my complex. "Zariah Moonstone," I whispered to myself, sinking against the peeling paint of my front door. "What the hell did you get yourself into?" I hadn't used that name in years. Not since my father died and my mother packed us into a van, fleeing the Alpha High Council and their cruel blood politics. I'd buried that identity. Changed it. Hid it under the name Zariah Bell. But Kalon remembered. And if he told Alric, I didn't know what would happen. Would I lose my job? Would I lose him? Would I be hunted again? My apartment was still as I left it. Small, neat, cramped with secondhand furniture, and that one cursed plant that refused to die no matter how much I neglected it. I kicked off my heels and peeled myself out of the silk gown like it was made of thorns. The marks from Alric's hands still lingered on my skin like shadows. My lips were sore from his kiss. My soul was sore from wanting more. I ran a bath. Let myself sink into the hot water until my skin flushed pink. But nothing could wash away the weight of the night. Not Kalon's venom. Not Alric's fire. By the time I climbed into bed, the city was asleep, and I wasn't. Because the moment I closed my eyes, I saw Alric's assistant, Helena, texted me at 6:34 a.m. Sharp, emergency meeting, his office, be there by 7, no greeting, no emojis. Just doom. I wore a blouse I hadn't ironed, and pants that were too tight, because who has time for self-esteem when you're about to be fired? The cab smelled like wet dog, and I was pretty sure it was a wet dog, because the driver was a rogue shifter with wild eyes and twitchy hands. When I arrived at the Drakemore Tower, the whole building felt tense. Guards flanked the lobby. The elevator security panel was blinking red, and the receptionist, a tall vampire woman with cheekbones that could slice glass, wouldn't meet my eyes. "Good luck," she muttered as I passed. Never a good sign. The door was already open. Alric stood behind his desk, shirt sleeves rolled up, hair a little too messy for comfort. His jacket was thrown over a chair, and his phone was vibrating non-stop on the desk. "You're late," he said without looking up. "I was early. You were earlier." He glanced at me then. His gaze moved down my body, slow, calculating, and something flickered in his eyes, desire maybe, or maybe just frustration. With me, with himself, with whatever storm was brewing. "Come in," he said. "Shut the door." "Kalon is an idiot," Alric said, pacing. "But he's not a liar. Oh no." My blood went cold. He knew. "Zariah," he continued, his voice low and sharp, "you're not just some Omega who lucked her way into this building, are you?" I said nothing. "I had your background pulled last night." "Of course he did." "And?" I whispered. "And it was clean. Too clean. Almost like someone scrubbed your past." My throat tightened. "Don't lie to me," he cut in, his eyes flashing gold. "Are you moonstone-blooded?" I flinched. That name again. Like a curse. Like a crown. "Yes," I breathed. Silence. For one heartbeat. Two. Then he turned away from me, fists clenched at his sides. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because the last time someone found out, my mother was murdered, and I spent 3 months hiding in a foxhole in the desert Packlands." He turned back slowly, his expression unreadable. "And you think I'd hurt you?" "I think you could. That's the problem." He came around the desk, stopped, just inches from me. "Do you have any idea what it means that you're Moonstone?" "I know exactly what it means. It means territory claims. It means ancient laws. It means every alpha in the country would try to marry me, or kill me. And what if I said I'm already both?" I blinked. "What? I already want to claim you, and kill every man who touches you." He didn't smile, didn't soften. He just burned. "For the record," I muttered, "that's not romantic. It's not meant to be. It's the truth." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "You kissed me last night," I whispered. "Was that the truth too?" He stepped even closer. "Zariah, that kiss wrecked me." "Then why did it feel like we were on opposite sides of a battlefield?" "Alric," I said, daring to reach out, my fingers grazing his chest. "I didn't come here to start a war." "You didn't," he replied, "but you brought one with you." Before we could say more, Helena burst into the room. "There's a problem." "What now?" Alric growled. "Kalon just announced to the press that Zariah is the Moonstone heiress." My stomach dropped. The walls tilted, and my life, as I knew it, exploded. Chapter 6. Moonstone Exposed. The Alphas claim the world ended with a headline. I was standing in the corner of Alric Drakemore's office, barefoot, breathless, exposed, when Helena turned her tablet toward us and said, "It's already trending." On the screen was my face, a photo from the gala, lips painted crimson, moonlit skin glowing under the chandeliers, eyes wide like I'd just heard the truth crash through the glass. And above it, in cruel bold font, Moonstone Heiress Returns, Secret Bloodline Exposed at T. Drakemore Gala. Subheader: Who is Zariah Bell? And why did she lie? Within minutes, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Unknown numbers, old pack contacts, journalists. One message even came from my old pack council mentor, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. "They'll come for you now, Z. Be careful who you trust." My fingers trembled as I turned the phone off and tossed it onto Alric's couch. I wanted to scream, to cry, to punch Kalon in the throat. But all I could do was breathe. In, out. I turned to Alric, heart in my throat. "This isn't survivable." "Yes, it is," he said instantly. "You're mine now." I stared at him. "What?" "I'm claiming you. What the actual hell does that mean?" Alric stepped closer, his tone shifting into that deep, commanding, bone-melting growl that made my knees weak and my wolf bare her throat. "It means if you're under my protection, no other Alpha Council member or blood-hungry faction can touch you without declaring war on me. And that's a good thing?" I whispered. "For you, yes. For them, no." My chest tightened. You'd go to war for me? No. His hand cupped my jaw gently, his thumb brushing my cheek. I'd go to war with you, there's a difference. I hadn't told anyone this story in full, not even my therapist, who was a retired nymph and liked to hum every time I lied. But standing there, with Alric looking at me like I was both treasure and threat, it came spilling out. My father was the last living Moonstone Alpha, I said, voice low. The Pack Council feared his influence. He had power, he had allies, and worse, he had an heir. Me. I swallowed. When I was 14, they sent assassins in the middle of the night. My mother pushed me out the window, and I ran barefoot through the woods while they burned the estate behind me. Alric's hands clenched into fists at his sides. I hid in the desert for months, I continued, and when I finally returned, my pack was disbanded. My name erased from the blood registries. I shouldn't even exist. But you do. Barely. His eyes locked onto mine. I've seen women barely surviving. You're not one of them, Zariah. You're dangerous, brilliant, and now that they know you're alive, they'll either want to control you or kill me. His jaw flexed. Not while I breathe. The next 12 hours passed in a blur of lawyers, publicists, security protocol, and damage control meetings. Alric didn't leave my side once. Not even when I tried to shove him out of the room so I could pee in peace. Alphas don't hide, he said, and neither do their mates. Mates? It's strategic, he said too quickly. Right, strategic. That's why his eyes kept dropping to my mouth like he wanted to taste the truth off my lips. By 7 p.m., Drakemore Industries was holding a press conference to address misinformation, which really meant Helena put me in a skin-tight navy power dress and shoved me into a bulletproof car next to the billionaire alpha I couldn't stop thinking about. The press outside the tower looked like sharks in a feeding frenzy. Smile, Helena whispered as we stepped onto the podium. I'd rather set the podium on fire. Alric put a steadying hand on my back. Do both. Smile and light it up. I could feel his palm through the fabric, warm, steady, infuriatingly comforting. I took a breath and faced the crowd. My name, I said, voice shaking but strong, is Zariah Moonstone. Yes, I'm the last living heir of the Moonstone line. But I didn't come here to rule or reclaim a throne. I came here because I worked my ass off to build a life, and I won't let that be taken from me again. Alric stood beside me, silent but unmoving, steady as stone. I glanced at him once, just long enough to see him nod. Approval, or maybe pride. I won't be controlled. Not by legacy, not by fear, and not by men like Thorne who weaponize bloodlines for power. That got gasps, a few camera flashes, and one reporter from the back shouted, "Are you and Mr. Drakemore romantically involved?" I blinked. Alric didn't miss a beat. He stepped to the mic, voice smooth and lethal. "She's under my protection," he said, "and anyone who tries to harm her will answer to me." He didn't say no, he didn't say yes, he said mine. We didn't speak for the first few minutes after returning to his tower, just silence. Heavy, electric. I sat on the edge of his ridiculously expensive sofa, head in my hands, and then he was there, kneeling in front of me, gently pulling my fingers away from my face. "You did good, Zariah. I outed myself to the entire supernatural world, and you survived it." I let out a bitter laugh. "You know what the worst part is?" "What?" "I almost believe you're doing this just to protect me." He didn't smile, didn't joke. He just leaned forward and said, "I am." The moment snapped like a rubber band. 1 second we were staring at each other, and the next his mouth crashed onto mine, hot, desperate, fierce. Nothing strategic about it, nothing polite. Just want that had been simmering since the first night he called me Omega like it was a promise. His hand gripped the back of my neck, pulling me closer. My nails dug into his chest as I kissed him back, teeth and tongue, fire and breathless fury. When he finally pulled away, both of us panting, he said, "This isn't about power, I know, and I don't just want to protect you. I know that too." "Then say it." I stared at him, then whispered, "I want you." Chapter 7. The Mark of an Alpha. Bitten, bound, and branded. The moment I whispered, "I want you," something in the room changed. The air between us grew denser, heavier, the kind of pressure that built in the sky before a storm, or in the space between two people holding back desire for far too long. Alric's golden eyes glowed faintly, betraying the beast beneath. His wolf was so close to the surface I could feel it humming inside him like a war drum. I should have been afraid, but I wasn't. I was burning, and I didn't want to be saved. "You don't know what you're asking for," Alric growled, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear, voice low and reverent. "I've been holding back since the day you walked into my office in those combat boots and that pissed-off attitude, and now I'm one breath away from biting you. I should have stopped him." We were standing on a knife's edge of reason, and the blade was already drawing blood. Instead, I leaned in and whispered, "Then bite." Something snapped. With a primal growl, Alric scooped me up like I weighed nothing. My legs wrapped around his waist on instinct, my arms locking around his neck as he stalked, toward the master bedroom like a beast claiming his prize. The room was dimly lit, decorated in shades of obsidian and ash, with long silk curtains billowing from floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the glowing skyline. The bed was massive. King-sized wasn't the word. It was a throne. Alric set me down gently, but his hands didn't leave my body. Instead, they roamed, tracing the curve of my waist, the dip of my spine, the bare skin beneath the hem of my dress as he slowly, tortuously slid it up over my thighs. "You smell like moonlight and trouble," he muttered against my throat, kissing a line from my jaw to my collarbone. "Do you know how hard it's been to pretend I don't want you?" "Pretend harder," I said breathlessly, tugging at the collar of his shirt, "because you're not doing a very good job." He laughed, a low, gravelly sound that made my toes curl. "Zariah," he warned. "I'm not fragile, Alric. I've survived assassins and exile. I can handle one possessive alpha." His eyes burned into mine. "You have no idea what I'm capable of. Then show me." What followed wasn't rushed. It wasn't frantic. It was deliberate. Alric touched me like I was something rare, like he was memorizing me, worshipping me. His hands explored every inch of skin he could uncover, and then, when that wasn't enough, he tore away the rest, ripping silk and lace and buttons until I was bare beneath his gaze. "You're beautiful," he whispered, voice reverent, my lips curved. "You say that like you're surprised." His smirk returned, sharp and wicked. "I'm constantly surprised by you, Zariah Moonstone." When he finally claimed me, it wasn't gentle, but it was controlled, like a beast given just enough leash to savor the taste before devouring the whole damn meal. I lost count of how many times I gasped his name, how many times he whispered mine like a prayer between bites and kisses, and promises he hadn't made yet but already meant. At the very edge of that pleasure-drunk haze I felt it, the change. His hands gripped tighter, his breath stuttered. And then I heard it, the low growl, the rumble in his chest, the warning only a wolf could understand. "Alric," I panted. I need to mark you." That should have sent alarm bells screaming in my head. A mark from an alpha was sacred, irreversible, binding. But I didn't run. I bared my throat. His fangs sank in with a sharp, possessive pressure, and for a moment, everything stopped. My heart, the world, even the pain felt like electricity. When he pulled back, my skin was burning with the imprint of his teeth. I wasn't just protected now, I was claimed. I woke up tangled in his sheets, his scent wrapped around me like silk and smoke, but the sunlight filtering in through the windows didn't bring peace. It brought reality, because even as his arm rested protectively around my waist, my phone buzzed against the nightstand again and again, lighting up with messages. This time, from Kalon. "You think he can keep you safe? He's just another monster. Just like me? Enjoy the leash, Zariah. It'll be the last freedom you taste, and the last one you forgot what moonstone blood means." But I didn't. Later that morning, Alric took a call in his private office with Helena and a council liaison. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but shifter hearing has perks. "They're calling for her to be brought before the High Tribunal," the voice snapped. "Moonstone blood hasn't been registered in over a decade. She was a child when she fled," Alric said coldly, "and she's a citizen of my pack now." "Not yet," the liaison countered. "You've bitten her. But she hasn't accepted the claim in the eyes of the council. That bite is just foreplay until she submits." "Careful," Alric growled. "That's my mate you're talking about." Later, when I confronted him, Alric didn't lie. "I bit you," he said, "but you haven't marked me back." "I didn't know I was supposed to," I snapped, annoyed. "You're not by tradition, but by council law. Until you accept the claim, publicly and magically, you're still a rogue. Unbound, fair game." I folded my arms. So what do I do? Just walk into council court and declare I'm your pretty little property? His gaze darkened. You don't belong to me, Zariah. I raised a brow. You are me. And somehow that felt worse and better. At the same time, that night I stood on the balcony of his penthouse, staring out at the moon. The bite on my neck still ached, not from pain, from want, from bond. Alric stepped behind me, his arms wrapping around my waist, chin resting lightly on my shoulder. They'll come for you, he whispered. Let them, I replied, my voice sharp with the steel I'd buried for years. He smiled. You're going to burn their world down, aren't you? I turned to face him, eyes blazing. No. We are. Chapter 8. If I'm your weakness, then let me be your war flashback. A bloodline cursed by power, the dream came before dawn. I was running through the forest barefoot, the earth slick with blood. The trees whispered secrets in a language I hadn't heard in years. A little girl with silver eyes stood beneath the moonlight. She wore a crown of antlers and a dress stitched from shadows. My breath caught. It was me, younger, wilder, untouched by betrayal. You'll have to choose, she whispered, her voice echoing like wind through the bones of my past. Your power or your love. Why not both? Her smile was sad. Because moonstones burn too bright for the world to survive us whole. When I woke, Alric was already dressed, shirt undone, tie draped around his neck, hair tousled like he hadn't slept a wink. He was standing at the balcony, staring at the rising sun like it had personally betrayed him. You okay? I asked, rubbing sleep from my eyes. He turned, eyes unreadable. You said yes last night, but was it real? I sat up, the mark on my neck still humming. I don't fake being bitten by a wolf, Alric. He didn't laugh, didn't even smile. We need to talk about what comes next. And just like that, the dream was over. Real life was calling. An hour later, we stood in the war room of the Pack Syndicate headquarters. It was a circular space with a sunken floor, marble walls carved with the names of every alpha who'd ruled since the Dawn Accord. The council crest, a six-pointed star wrapped in a serpent, loomed overhead. Helena sat to Alric's right, dressed in sharp navy with her silver hair in a braided crown. To my left, a high council scribe waited with a ceremonial scroll. I don't need a lecture, I muttered to Helena as the room filled. No, you need a strategy, she whispered back. And for Luna's sake, don't punch anyone today. No promises. The council meeting began with rigid tradition. Introductions, oaths, territorial acknowledgements. And then, Zariah Moonstone, announced Elder Corvan, a wiry old man with clouded eyes and a voice like dried paper. You stand accused of violating Rogue Regulation 7.12a, failing to submit to registry or claim allegiance to a pack in the wake of your first shift. I blinked. That's what this is about? Paperwork? No, Alric said, voice clipped. This is about control. Alpha Draven, Corvan said sternly. Your mate's outburst is unbecoming. She's not my mate, I said, loud and clear. The room fell silent. Alric's head turned sharply. His jaw clenched. Not yet. Council law required proof of acceptance, of both the claim and the alpha, a formal bond, ritual magic, and public submission. I was fine with everything, except that last part. Submit, me, to anyone? No chance in hell, so I made a choice. I stepped into the center of the chamber, raised my chin, and cut my palm with a silver ceremonial dagger. Blood welled instantly, red and shimmering with threads of moonlight. I am Zariah Moonstone, I said, my voice echoing. Firstborn daughter of the lost line. I do not submit. I choose. And I choose him. I turn to Alric. Not because I have to, but because I want to. Gasps erupted from the gallery as I pressed my bleeding palm to the mark he left on my neck. A flare of white-hot energy burst between us. The bond completed. Irrevocable. Cosmic. Alric's body jerked like he'd been electrocuted. His eyes went gold and silver at once, and in that moment we weren't two people. We were one force, and we were terrifying. The ritual ended. The council recessed. But the world would not be the same. Outside the chamber, Alric cornered me near a fountain lit by glowing sigils. You didn't have to do that, he murmured. I did, I said, because I'm done letting people speak for me. I was afraid you'd regret it. I stepped close. Do I look like a woman with regrets? He looked down at my lips. No, he growled. You look like a woman who's about to get kissed. So I let him. Right there, against ancient stone and moon-kissed marble, I kissed him like he was oxygen, and I had been drowning since birth. His hands gripped my hips. My fingers curled into his shirt. We were heat and hunger, rage and relief. The kiss felt like it lasted for hours, like it branded me from the inside. When we broke apart, we were both breathless, and smiling. I'm yours, I whispered. And I'm yours, he replied. But this is just the beginning. That night, while the bond still pulsed in my veins, we returned to Alric's penthouse to find the front door ajar. Inside, chaos. Bookshelves overturned, furniture shredded, a sigil carved into the wall in blood, and on the floor, a dead hawk, feathers soaked in poison. Helena stormed in behind us, face white. That's a Moonblade warning. What does it mean? I asked, stepping closer. She stared at me, voice low. It means Kalon knows you're bonded now, and he's not going to wait any longer. Alric stepped in front of me, tense as iron. He wants a war? He growled. He'll get one. That night, I didn't sleep. I stood at the window, watching the lights of the city below as the mark on my neck throbbed in time with my heartbeat. I wasn't just a rogue anymore. I wasn't just a mate. I was the future queen of a pack syndicate that was about to go to war. And I was ready. For vengeance. For love. For power. Chapter 9. A storm ice only beautiful until IT breaks your home lightning painted streaks across the glass windows of Alric's penthouse, and thunder rolled like an ancient beast waking from centuries of sleep. I stood at the window, barefoot and dressed in one of Alric's silk shirts, long enough to be indecent, soft enough to remember every brush of his skin against mine. Behind me, I could feel him watching. Not with hunger this time, with fear. He was pretending to read through a thick file folder marked Sovereign Codex Moonblade Faction, but every few seconds, he looked up at me like I might disappear. I didn't turn. You think Kalon will come tonight? Alric's voice was low, rough. He's not that stupid. No, I said quietly, but he is desperate. Alric closed the folder with a sigh, stood, and came to me. He wrapped his arms around my waist from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. The warmth of his body seeped into my bones like sunlight after a storm. I should have burned him when I had the chance. You didn't know he'd go this far. I did, Alric said. I just didn't want to admit it. We stood in silence, watching rain snake down the windows like the world itself was crying, and for once, I let myself lean back into him, not because I was weak, but because I was tired of being strong all alone. The next morning came with blood-colored skies and a ringing phone. Get dressed, Helena snapped through the line. You're both coming with me. Now, 15 minutes later, we were in her armored SUV, tearing through the city streets toward the lower district of Stonefang, the oldest part of the werewolf territories, and the one place the Pack Council didn't dare enter without backup. I tracked the sigil left on your wall, she explained. Eyes on the road. It wasn't just a warning, it was a call. A call to who? I asked. To the Ancient Ones. I blinked. Excuse me? Helena threw me a look. Did Alric never tell you about the moon contracts? He stiffened beside me. Because it's forbidden, he muttered. Helena scoffed. So is mating a rogue and dragging her into council politics. Yet here we are. I turned to Alric. Tell me now. He exhaled, slow, reluctant. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors made a pact with celestial entities, forces older than the moon goddess herself. They gave us power, territory, shifting. But there was a price. What kind of price? Blood, Helena said grimly, and loyalty. The Moonblade faction believes our bloodline has grown weak and impure. They want to purify it. I stared. You mean genocide? Alric nodded once. They'll start with rogues, then move to hybrids, then us. And what about me? I whispered. Neither of them answered. But I already knew. I was the spark. And Kalon wanted me dead before I became the fire. Helena led us down beneath an abandoned cathedral, through catacombs layered in spells and ancient runes. At the end was a vault made of obsidian and bone, sealed with blood magic. This is where we keep the outlawed scrolls, she said, touching the door with her palm. What you're about to read has been buried for a reason. Inside, darkness, lit only by the glow of sigils embedded in the walls, shelves full of scrolls, books bound in leather older than time, a single pedestal in the center, with one scroll laid open like an accusation. Alric stepped forward. I followed. Together, we read it. And everything changed. The prophecy spoke of a rogue-born alpha queen, a woman with moonlight in her blood, one who would either unite the Pack Syndicate under a new order or burn it to the ground. "Zariah," Alric whispered, looking at me, "this is about you." "No," I said. "It's about us." We barely made it back to the surface before the first explosion hit. Fire swallowed the west wing of the cathedral. A screech echoed, high, inhuman, cruel. And then they came, Kalon's elite warriors, black armor, pale eyes, fangs bared. "Not wolves, not anymore. Nightbloods," Helena growled. "Run!" Alric shifted mid-stride, his wolf form bigger than any I'd seen, silver and gold like a creature blessed by the moon goddess herself. I followed, my wolf snapping into place with a growl that made the stones tremble. We fought, we bled, and we nearly lost, until I did something I didn't know I could do. I howled. But it wasn't a wolf's howl, it was something older. Something that cracked the sky in half. The Nightbloods froze, one dropped to its knees, another turned and fled, the rest followed, and then, silence, smoke, ash, blood. Alric shifted back, panting, eyes wide as he stared at me. "What the hell was that?" I was shaking. I don't know. Helena looked stunned. "I do." "You awakened the moonfire." I stared at my hands. They were glowing. That night, I stood in the shower trying to wash away the blood, the fear, the power that now pulsed under my skin like a second heartbeat. The door opened behind me. Alric didn't speak. He just walked in, naked, eyes soft but fierce, and stepped under the water with me. "I saw you today," he said. "Not just your wolf, not just your power. You." I was scared, I admitted. "I wasn't," he said. "Because you were mine." He reached out, traced the edge of my jaw, then leaned in and kissed me. Slow, reverent, like the world hadn't almost ended, like he'd waited centuries for that moment. I melted into him. His hands moved over my wet skin like he was memorizing every curve. He kissed my neck, my shoulder, my mouth again. When he pressed me against the tile and whispered, "Let me show you what it means to be chosen," I let him, and for the first time in a long time, I felt safe. I felt seen. I felt his. But outside the walls of the penthouse, war brewed. Kalon was watching, waiting, and far to the east in the ruins of the Wraithvale, a woman with ink-black eyes whispered to the wind. "The Alpha Queen is awakening," she said. "Then so must I." And the dead began to stir. Chapter 10. I don't belong to anyone, but I chose you. The sun rose over Stonefang, gilding the horizon in streaks of gold and fire. For the first time in days, the storm had passed, but the damage had been done. I woke up tangled in Alric's arms, the sheets a chaotic swirl of silk and sweat, our bodies still damp from the night before. He slept like a beast at rest, strong, warm, powerful, but even in his sleep, one arm was slung protectively over my waist, like some part of him was still guarding me from ghosts. My hand traced a faint scar across his chest, one I hadn't noticed before, a thin, silvery line that curved from his collarbone to just beneath his ribs. He stirred. "Careful," he mumbled, voice gravelly. "That one tickles." "You don't seem like the ticklish type," I teased. He cracked one eye open, smiling slightly. "That's because I'm not, except when you touch me." I rolled my eyes, but my chest warmed. "That's not fair." "Nothing about this is," he murmured. Then, more seriously, "But I wouldn't trade any of it. Not one scar, not 1 second. My smile faded. "Even with Kalon after us? Even with the council breathing down your neck?" He propped himself on one elbow, brushing my hair from my face. "Especially then. You've always been worth the war." His words hit like a quiet thunder, because for so long I'd been nothing more than a complication, an unwanted mate, a rogue. Now, someone was calling me worth it. And not just anyone. The Alpha King of the Northern Syndicate. By mid-afternoon, the peace shattered. A raven slammed into the penthouse balcony, feathers black as void, eyes silver as frost. "Moonblade Courier," Alric growled. I picked up the scroll tied to its leg. The paper was stiff, reeking of blood and burned cedar. Alric read over my shoulder, "To Alpha Alric of the Bloodfang line, you are hereby summoned by the Grand Council to stand trial for treason, unlawful protection of a rogue born, and interference in Moonblade purification rites. Failure to appear will result in your title being stripped and your land seized. You have 48 hours. He crumpled it in his fist. They're trying to force your hand, I said. They're trying to separate us, he corrected, eyes burning, because they know together we're a threat. Then we go together, I said. He hesitated. Zariah, no. I stepped closer, chin lifted. You don't get to shield me from this. Not anymore. I'm not a damsel. I'm your mate. And this is my fight, too. His gaze softened. Goddess, I love you. I blinked. What? He froze, eyes wide. I forget I said. I grabbed his shirt and yanked him close. Say it again. He stared down at me, then leaned in slowly, like a man walking willingly into fire. I love you, Zariah Rain. From the moment you walked into my bar and flipped off a beta twice your size, I was ruined. My lips parted. I don't belong to anyone, I whispered, but I chose you. He kissed me hard, fierce, like he wanted to brand the truth into my bones. And when we pulled apart, I wasn't scared anymore. I was ready. We flew out in Alric's private jet. Helena met us at the airstrip, dressed head to toe in black leather, a dagger strapped to each thigh. If anything goes sideways, she told me quietly, I've got your back. I thought you worked for the council. I work for justice, not old men clinging to rusted thrones. The journey was tense. We passed over fractured territory, farmlands reduced to ash, rogue camps abandoned in fear. The effects of the Moonblade faction's cleansing had already begun, and I could feel it deep in my bones. Change was coming, but not everyone would survive it. The council hall sat atop Mount Vale, carved into the mountain like a scar. Its walls were white stone, veined with silver, and guarded by statues of wolves twice the size of men. Inside, cold, not in temperature. In spirit, 12 elders lined the throne-like seats in a semicircle. Behind them, shadows flickered, lesser alphas, nobles, witnesses. And in the center, Kalon Blackthorne. He was dressed in royal crimson, hair slicked back, eyes gleaming with triumph. Alpha Alric, Elder Varn drawled, you stand accused of treason. How do you plead? Alric stepped forward, chin high. Not guilty. And the rogue-born? I stepped forward. My name is Zariah Rain. I'm not just rogue-born. I'm the prophesied Alpha Queen. And if you call me rogue again, I'll rip your throat out and feed it to the ravens. Gasps echoed. Helena smirked. Well, that was subtle. Kalon snarled. You think you're queen? You're filth. Born from nothing. Marked by the moonfire, I said, eyes glowing. Which chose me, not you. My voice carried like thunder across the chamber. And then, I howled. The ground shook. Sigils burned into the marble. Half the elders reeled. One collapsed. Kalon turned pale, and the council chamber split in two, literally. From the shadows, Nightblood surged forward, Kalon's backup plan, but we were ready. Helena drew twin blades. Alric shifted mid-leap, knocking 2 assassins into the marble walls. And me. I summoned the moonfire. It blazed from my hands like white-hot justice, licking across the floor, searing away enchantments, tearing through Nightbloods like paper. I was no longer hiding. I was becoming. When the dust cleared, Kalon was gone. But he left behind something worse, a book. Titled Rain Bloodline, The Lost Queen's Betrayal. Inside records of me, of my parents, of a child stolen from the Moon Court. Me. I'm not rogue-born, I whispered. I'm royal. Alric stepped behind me. You're more than that. You're mine. And you're about to rewrite history. And I would, even if I had to burn the council down to do it. Chapter 11. Blood doesn't make a pack. Loyalty does. The ruins of the Grand Council Hall smoldered behind us like a dying beast. Smoke clung to my hair, my skin, my clothes. The scent of scorched sigils and burnt betrayal filled the air. And yet, inside me, something had awakened. I wasn't the scared rogue girl anymore, the one who begged Kalon not to reject her under the full moon. That girl had died the night he spat the words, "You're unworthy." Now? Now I stood taller. Now I had fire in my blood. And beside me, bruised, bloodied but unshaken, stood Alric. His gaze never left me, even as the council's forces scrambled behind us, even as healers rushed in, even as Helena interrogated the captured Nightbloods with a sharp blade and sharper smile. He watched me like I was the only thing that existed in his world. I should have felt powerful, but all I felt was lost. I need answers, I said quietly. He nodded once. Then we'll go where they began. The private jet touched down in the northern wilds 3 hours later. The territory was colder here, more ancient. The trees loomed like sentinels, and the wind howled in a language older than wolves. We landed near the Rain ruins, what used to be a kingdom. My mother's. Now only marble columns and shattered statues remained, swallowed by ivy, half buried in moss, kissed by snow. But the energy still pulsed like a heartbeat underground. "This was your home," Alric said softly, walking beside me. "I don't remember any of it. That doesn't mean it isn't yours." We stepped through the crumbling archway of what had once been a throne room, and there, in the center of the floor, was a blood-stained sigil. I knelt, brushing snow from its edges. It glowed faintly beneath my fingertips, responding to me. It opened a door. Beneath the ruins, a vault. Inside, a library sealed by blood magic, a nursery with a broken mobile, and a throne carved from obsidian, untouched by time. Alric stepped back, letting me explore. And then I saw it. A silver circlet, covered in runes, sitting on a velvet pedestal. I didn't even think, I just reached for it. The moment my fingers closed around the crown, I felt it. Her, my mother, Queen Leora Rain. Her voice whispered in my mind. My daughter. My alpha. Suddenly, I wasn't in the ruins anymore. I was standing in that very same throne room, but it was whole, alive. The banners of House Rain fluttered. My mother stood tall, cloaked in silver and blue, and before her, Kalon's father, Alpha Tier Black Thorne. "I will never give you my child," she spat. "You don't need to," he sneered. "I'll take her myself." The flash of magic, the blood, the screams. Then everything went dark. I gasped as I was ripped from the vision. Back in the ruins, back in my body. But now I knew. I was taken, I whispered. Kalon's family stole me. Alric's hands gripped my shoulders. "Then it's time we steal you back." Later that night, after the fires had burned low and the ghost of my past had retreated into shadows, we returned to Alric's penthouse. It was oddly quiet. The city lights blinked outside the tall windows like distant stars, but inside, it felt like the world had shrunk down to just us. "I thought claiming you would be the biggest fight of my life," Alric said, standing by the window. "I didn't realize loving you would be harder." I turned. "Loving me is hard? No, it's terrifying." He looked at me, eyes fierce but raw. "Because every time you walk into danger, I feel like I'm being ripped apart." "Then stop holding me like I'm a porcelain doll," I snapped. "I'm not breakable." He was beside me in a second. "I know. Then why? Because if I lose you, Zariah, if I lose you, there's no world left worth ruling." Silence. My heart pounded. I walked toward him slowly. One step, then another, then "Don't lose me," his breath caught. "Choose me, every time. Even when it's hard. Even when I mess up. Even when I bite first and think later." "I already did," he whispered. And then his lips were on mine. But this kiss, it wasn't like the others. It was slower, hotter, softer and rougher all at once. He lifted me into his arms, carried me to the fireplace, and laid me down on the soft fur rug like I was his treasure. Because I was... He undressed me like he was unwrapping a secret the universe had hidden just for him. His mouth trailed fire down my neck, over my collarbone, lower. And when our bodies finally met, skin to skin, soul to soul, I didn't feel like a rejected mate. I felt like a goddess. He moved inside me slowly, reverently, letting me feel every inch, every heartbeat. And when I looked into his eyes, I saw it. Not just love, devotion. He wasn't just claiming my body, he was claiming my fate, and I was letting him. Because he was the one who chose me after I was broken, the one who held me together before I could even stand. And now? Now we were both on fire. When I cried out his name, when his mouth met my shoulder in the heat of release, he marked me, not with blood, not with a bite, but with his power. Magic flared, and a new sigil bloomed across my skin, half his, half mine. It shimmered in gold and silver, unbreakable, undeniable. "Mine," he growled, and I whispered, "Yours." Meanwhile, in the shadows back in the ruins of the council, Kalon stood over the remains. He held the book of bloodlines in one hand, and a blade in the other. "Let her think she's winning," he muttered to the shadows. Behind him, a figure emerged, one I recognized too late. "Helena, "You're sure you want to go through with this?" she asked. Kaelon smirked. "I've waited too long to let her go now. The betrayal was coming, and this time, it would shatter everything." Chapter 12. The Lies We Bleed. For a few days later, for the first time in years, I slept without nightmares. No screams, no burning thrones, just warmth. The warmth of his body wrapped around mine, strong and protective. The low rhythm of his heartbeat was the only lullaby I needed. And the bond, our bond, was alive now, pulsing beneath my skin like starlight woven into flesh. But peace? Peace didn't last long in my world. I woke to the phone ringing. Alric stirred beside me, groaning softly as I disentangled from his arms and padded barefoot across the polished floor. I still wore his shirt, black, silk, oversized, and my hair was a mess from last night's passion. I picked up the call on speaker. "Zariah, it's Helena." My blood turned cold. Alric sat up immediately. Helena's voice was flat, businesslike. "We have a problem. We caught a rogue trying to sneak into the east border checkpoint last night," Helena said. "Says he's got information you need." "Who is he?" "Name's Alric. Used to run with Kaelon's pack. Says Kaelon's building an army outside the city." Alric was already moving, pulling on his black tactical shirt, sliding a blade into the sheath sewn into his boots. "We'll come to the council hall." Helena's pause was slight, but noticeable. "Zariah should come alone." "No," Alric snapped instantly. "Absolutely not." But I stepped forward, calm despite the storm rising in my gut. "I'll go." "Zariah," she asked for me. I need to hear it from him myself. I glanced back at Alric, trying not to flinch at the worry burning in his eyes. "I need to do this, not just for me, for our future." He came to me, his hands cradling my face, thumb brushing the bond mark on my shoulder. 1 hour. That's all you get. If you're not back, I'll bring hell with me." I smiled faintly. "You always do." The cells beneath the council were freezing, made from wolfsbane lace stone and iron, designed to weaken even the strongest shifters. Alric looked half dead already, dirty, eyes sunken, one wrist chained to the wall. But when he saw me, he grinned. "I knew you'd come, Rain Girl. Talk. He's building something. A force. Wolves who've been rejected, exiled, scarred by the current system. He's offering them a new pack. No laws, no rules, just Kaelon at the top. Why?" Alric coughed, spitting blood onto the floor. "Because of you. You're the last true-blooded heir, and if you bond to Alric, the old families lose all claim. So he's going to... What? Kill me? No. Worse." He leaned forward, eyes flickering amber. "He's going to take you back." Alric's words rattled something loose in my memory, a voice I'd forgotten. Kaelon, younger, before the cruelty took root in his soul. "You'll be mine forever, Zariah. Even the moon can't change that." I remembered the full moon, the way he watched me shift for the first time, his gaze possessive. Not proud, not tender. Possessive, as if he saw me not as a person, but a prize. I left the cell shaking. Helena was waiting outside, arms folded. "He's telling the truth." "Yes," I murmured, "he is." We walked in silence for a moment, until I noticed something. The scent on her jacket. It wasn't hers. It was Kaelon's. I froze. "You've seen him." Her smile was tight. "You don't understand what's coming, Zariah. I understand betrayal." Helena sighed. "You were always too soft." Then she lifted her hand, and I smelled wolfsbane. I ducked just in time as Helena's claw slashed the air where my throat had been a second before. Guards swarmed around her, but not to stop her. To help her. My breath caught. She'd turned them. I shifted midair, bones snapping, fur bursting through my skin. My wolf, the one I'd buried for years, was back, and she was furious. I fought my way out, leaving claw marks and blood behind. I didn't stop running until I was back in Alric's arms. "She tried to kill you?" His voice was deadly calm. Too calm. I nodded. He turned to his beta. "We're activating the Phoenix Protocol." My eyes widened. "What's that?" Alric's jaw clenched. "It means we burn them all." Somewhere deep in the Frostlands, Kaelon stood on a cliff overlooking his newly gathered army. He wore black armor. His eyes were glowing red with the blood moon's touch. At his side stood Helena. "She's ready," he said, voice cold. "She just doesn't know it yet." Helena smirked. "What will you do when she loves him more than she ever loved you?" Kalon didn't flinch. Then I'll rip his heart out and offer it to her on a silver plate. That night, I sat alone on the balcony, watching the stars blink against the inky sky. Alric joined me quietly, draping a blanket over my shoulders. What if I'm not enough? I whispered. What if Kalon's right, and I'll always belong to him in some twisted way? Alric didn't answer immediately. He just knelt in front of me, took my hand, pressed it to his heart. You don't belong to Kalon. Or to me, you belong to yourself. But if you choose me, I'll protect that choice with everything I am. Tears filled my eyes. Then I'd choose you. His kiss was slow and aching like a vow. A storm was coming. But for tonight, we had each other. Chapter 13. The Alpha's blood oath. The night air was thick with the scent of iron and ash. Somewhere far away, a wolf howled, a long, mournful sound that carried the weight of a world beginning to unravel. I sat by the hearth, knees pulled to my chest, trying to make sense of everything. Of Helena's betrayal, of the guards who turned against me, of the searing bond pulsing between me and Alric, now stitched deeper into my bones than any scar. You haven't shifted back yet, Alric said gently, standing behind me. His hand hovered near my shoulder, as if he didn't want to spook me. Zariah, you're safe now, with me. I hadn't realized I was still in my wolf form, white fur marred with blood, some mine, most not. I closed my eyes and let the shift roll through me. It hurt this time, not like it did before, but like I was being reborn, again. Clothes were handed to me before I could ask, a soft black hoodie with Alric's scent all over it and cotton shorts. He turned away like a gentleman, but I felt his eyes on me the second I was dressed. You're bleeding, he said, brushing a thumb over the side of my face. Helena had silver-lined claws. His jaw tightened. She'll die for what she did. And the guards? Already detained. Interrogations start in the morning. I shook my head. It won't stop with her, Alric. This is bigger than Helena. Kalon is building something twisted. He thinks he can remake the world. He's wrong, Alric said darkly, because I'll burn it down before he does. Later that night, Alric took me into the oldest wing of his estate. A candlelit chamber made entirely of moonstone and carved obsidian. At the center stood a massive basin of crystal-clear water, glowing faintly under the moonlight filtering through the stained glass ceiling. What is this place? I asked, breath catching in my throat. This, he said, is where my ancestors swore blood oaths to protect their fated mates. It hasn't been used in over 100 years. He pulled out a dagger, silver-edged but ancient, with a sapphire hilt. I want to swear to you here, Zariah, not just as your alpha, not even as your mate, but as the man who fell for you, against every instinct, rule, and fear. I stared at him, heart pounding. What if I'm not ready to say it back? He stepped closer, eyes blazing blue. Then I'll wait, even if it takes 100 years, but I need you to know I'm not going anywhere. He pricked his palm, letting his blood drip into the water. The liquid sizzled with light. I vow to stand beside you through every war, betrayal, and curse, to protect your freedom, not control it, to never let my love become a cage. And then he looked at me, so soft, so sure. Tears burned in my throat. I stepped forward, took the dagger, and pressed the blade to my own palm. My turn. As our blood mingled in the basin, something pulsed in the water, a flash of light, a ripple, and then an image. A woman with long silver hair, wrapped in ceremonial robes, standing over a child. She was whispering words I couldn't understand, her eyes glowing white. Alric stiffened beside me. What is this? It's a memory. But not mine. The child the woman cradled had eyes like mine, and hers. But the woman, she was a high priestess of the old bloodlines. My mother, the one I never met. Alric placed his hand beside mine in the basin, and the vision swirled again, this time showing Kalon, standing beside a robed man with the same silver hair. That's impossible, Alric muttered. What? He's your half-brother. The room spun. No, he can't be. Same mother, Alric said grimly. Different fathers. I stumbled back, shaking. Kalon wasn't just obsessed. He believed I belonged to him by birthright. He wasn't just after me. He was after our bloodline. The next morning, Alric stood before his entire pack. Every alpha, beta, and warrior called from across the territories. The Phoenix banner was raised, a black flag with a silver wolf on fire. I stood beside him, no longer hiding. "You all know me," Alric said. "You know what I've fought for, what I've built. I never wanted war." His gaze swept the crowd. "But war has found us." Cheers, growls, the stamp of claws and paws. Kalon of the Rain Pack has declared himself challenger. He wants to tear down the peace we've fought to build. He wants bloodlines to matter more than hearts. But we won't let him. He turned to me then, and the pack followed his gaze. "This is Zariah, my mate, my equal, the future of the Alpha line, and anyone who threatens her, threatens us all." A howl broke out, then another. Thousands of wolves lifted their heads to the sky. The call to war had been sounded. That night, despite everything, I found myself restless. Alric was in strategy meetings until sunrise. I wandered into the library, drawn to the firelight. Kalon's voice haunted me. "You'll always belong to me, little dove." I wrapped Alric's hoodie tighter around me and sank into the armchair. Alric found me an hour later, disheveled and tired, eyes softening when he saw me curled up in his clothes. "Couldn't sleep?" "Too much noise in my head." He sat beside me and pulled me into his lap, arms wrapping around me like armor. "We'll face it together," he murmured into my hair. "You don't have to be strong all the time." And for once, I let go. I let the tears fall. I let the past go silent. And in the circle of his arms, I believed, just for a moment, that love might win. Chapter 14. The traitor in the pack. The morning fog rolled over the estate like a living beast, curling between the tall iron gates and across the marble balconies. Every wolf in the Blackridge pack had been on edge since Alric's public declaration. Word of war moved fast, especially when it was carried on the wind by howling messengers. But something was off. I could feel it in my bones. Someone was watching me, not from outside, from within. I stood on the veranda, the breeze toying with the hem of my black training tunic. Alric had insisted I start combat training again, this time under his direct command. But today wasn't about sparring or strength. Today, it was about instincts, and mine were screaming. "Zariah." The voice was soft, too soft. I turned. Lyra, Alric's top female beta, stood with her arms crossed and lips tight. She was tall, powerful, with sharp features and golden hair usually tied into a tight braid. Her expression was unreadable, but there was something in her eyes, something careful, watching. "You're early," I said. "I like to observe the sunrise, clears the mind." I raised a brow. "Is that why you've been in the training yard every night this week, even when no one's around?" Her gaze sharpened. "You're observant, so are you." I stepped forward, narrowing my eyes. "But let's not play games. If you've got something to say to me, say it." A long pause. Then her voice dropped low. "Not here. Meet me in the West Wing. Storage room under the library. Midnight." Before I could ask more, she turned and walked away, her boots silent against the stone. Midnight. I waited until the halls were empty, cloaking myself in one of Alric's dark coats and pulling the hood low. The castle was eerily silent, save for the ticking of the antique grandfather clock and the creak of floorboards beneath my bare feet. The library was massive, like something stolen out of a forgotten castle. Moonlight filtered through high-arched windows, illuminating shelves that reached the ceiling. I moved to the back, where a false panel led into the old archives. Dusty, cold. Lyra was already there, leaning against a stone pillar, her arms crossed and a file in her hand. "I found this," she said without preamble, tossing the file onto an old wooden table. I opened it. Inside were surveillance images, coded communications, and hand-scribbled notes. And at the center, Cassian, Alric's cousin, his blood brother, his second in command. "No," I breathed. Lyra nodded grimly. "He's been in contact with Kalon for over 3 months. It started small. Information leak, supply delays, but it escalated last week. He fed Helena the exact coordinates of your shift training route the night of the ambush." My knees went weak. Cassian. The one who taught me how to block a beta's scent from detection, who baked cookies in secret for the kitchen staff, who walked me through the estate when I couldn't sleep, and he had sold me out. "What's Alric going to do?" I asked, voice raw. Lyra hesitated. "He doesn't know yet. I needed to tell you first. He won't be able to think clearly." "You think he'll spare him?" "I think he'll want to," she said softly. "And that would get us all killed." Before we could move to confront Cassian, alarms blared. Red warning lights flickered across the walls of the old archives. The ancient wolf-etched sconces turned from gold to crimson. "Breach in the eastern tunnel," came a voice over the intercom. Lyra and I sprinted through the corridors, heart pounding. When we reached the main passage, flames licked the stone walls. Smoke filled the air, thick and choking. Shadows darted between columns. Enemies, inside the estate. Kalon's soldiers, dressed in ash-colored armor, their eyes glowing with silver fury. "Protect the vault," someone shouted. But I was already moving. The vault was where Alric stored not just weapons, but sacred scrolls, documents that held the lineage of every alpha born of pure blood, including mine. They were trying to erase us. Lyra tackled one of the intruders while I ducked beneath a swinging blade, rolling and grabbing a dagger from the ground. My body moved on instinct. Wolf fast, human sharp. I fought my way to the vault doors, flinging one open, only to freeze. Cassian stood inside, his hand already on a burning scroll. His eyes met mine, and he didn't flinch. "You weren't supposed to see this. You weren't supposed to be this," I said, shaking. He sighed. "I never hated you, Zariah, but you changed everything." He was never supposed to fall in love with a cursed bloodline. "Cursed?" I echoed. He stepped closer. "Your mother's blood isn't just old, it's forbidden. She was a lunar oracle, an untethered prophetess who vanished into shadow. She cursed your line to never bond safely. You and Alric are doomed. Your love will kill one of you." "No," I whispered. He tossed the scroll into the fire, and I screamed. A roar split the smoke, and then Alric was there. He didn't say a word. He launched at Cassian. Their claws collided mid-air, the sound like a thunderclap in the chamber. The fight was brutal. Alric's face was a mask of agony and fury, claws flashing, blood spraying across the stone walls. Cassian fought hard, but not to kill. He was stalling. "Go," Alric snarled at me. "Get out." "No," I shouted. "We need the scrolls." But then Cassian turned, eyes flashing, and lunged at me. It happened in slow motion, a dagger to the chest, meant for me. But Alric stepped between us. Blood, so much blood. He fell, and the room shattered. Alric collapsed in my arms, blood soaking through his shirt, warm and wet against my skin. "No, no, no. Don't you dare," I sobbed, pressing my hands to the wound. Cassian was gone, slipped through the smoke. "Zariah!" Alric's voice was faint, trembling. "Don't speak, don't move, please. Stay with me, I can't." "You have to bond with me," he whispered. "What?" "Right now. If we don't, I won't heal in time. Your bond mark hasn't manifested yet. It will, if you say yes." Tears streamed down my cheeks. "I love you." He smiled, and the mark flared to life on his neck, silver and glowing. Like a broken moon, I pressed my lips to his, and in that instant, the bond snapped into place like a tidal wave crashing through my soul. His body jerked in my arms, then stilled. Then, a breath, another. He was alive. Barely. Chapter 15. The curse that binds us. Alric didn't wake. Not that night. Not the next morning. Not even when I screamed his name, begged the moon, or burned sage from the ancient forests beneath the cliffs. He just lay there, breathing but barely. His skin was too pale. His mark still shimmered on his neck, a silver crescent carved like a second skin, but the power from it had faded, like embers gone cold. We kept him in the Moonlight Recovery Chamber, a sealed sanctuary built under the West Tower, where only bonded mates and royal blood could enter. The walls pulsed with healing runes. Moonlight filtered through the glass ceiling, catching on the dew that formed from his breath. But even the moon couldn't reach him now. Not fully. And it was because of me. Because of the curse. I pressed my forehead to the cold crystal pane of the chamber's main gate, fingers trembling. "I would trade every heartbeat I've ever had if it meant he'd wake up," I whispered. "Just come back to me." I didn't sleep for 3 days. I read. I tore through every scroll, every ledger, every dust-choked tome in the vault archives. I found records of bloodlines older than the High Clans. I found maps to places lost beneath the sea. But what I was looking for was her. My mother, Lunara of the Eclipse Veil, a name spoken like a warning in older texts. Feared, revered, hated. She was a lunar oracle, one of only 4 born every few centuries, blessed by the goddess Selenara herself. But unlike the others, Lunara refused the sacred vow of silence. She defied the High Council, fell in love with a shadow wolf, and bore a daughter with power strong enough to tear the veil between spirit and flesh. Me. But she paid a price. The prophecy said, "Any bond forged by her blood shall walk the edge of death. The fangs of love shall pierce the heart, and if one survives, they must shatter the moon to save the other." The fangs of love. It was literal. My bond with Alric had activated, and it had nearly killed him, because I was never meant to be bonded. Unless I broke the curse. The deeper I dug, the more it became clear. There was only one spell powerful enough to sever the ancestral curse placed on my bloodline. A ritual so forbidden that it had been locked away in the hidden vault beneath the shattered basilica of Eridine. Lyra, always one step behind me, caught me mid-research with eyes blazing and fury shaking her voice. "You're going to the basilica alone? Are you insane? That place was buried for a reason." "I have no choice," I said. "If I don't break this curse, Alric dies. Maybe not today, but soon. And if I stay bonded to him, it'll kill me too." She grabbed my shoulders. "Zariah, there are some powers not meant to be touched." I looked her dead in the eye. "Then I'll burn them down. I didn't survive a mate who rejected me, a pack who exiled me, and betrayal from the inside just to lose the one person who ever looked at me like I wasn't cursed." She stared at me for a long moment, then sighed and cursed under her breath. "Then I'm coming with you." We left at dusk. It took 2 days of traveling through shifting mountain passes, cloaked trails, and whispering woods to reach the basilica ruins. The sky was an eerie gold, split by streaks of stormlight. Clouds churned above the remains of the temple, a once great cathedral built for the worship of the old moons. Its white columns now lay broken, vines curling up their sides like veins. In the center stood a black altar, smooth obsidian, untouched by time. The spell we needed, lunar severance, was inscribed beneath the altar in blood-locked runes. It could only be activated by one of Lunara's direct bloodline. Which meant me. The ritual had 3 requirements: a willing heart, mine, a blood offering, mine, and a vow to sacrifice the bond if the moon demanded it. As I carved the sigil into my palm and let the blood drip onto the stone, I whispered the vow: "If love must die for him to live, then I surrender it. Let the bond be broken, let the moon decide." The altar pulsed, light exploded from the center, and I screamed. Pain tore through my chest. I felt the bond between Alric and me rip, like sinew pulled from bone. I saw visions of our memories, our kisses, our laughter, burning to ash, and then silence. I returned to the estate hours later, half-conscious, barely breathing, blood-crusted and hollow. They carried me to the moonlight chamber. He was gone. No, not gone. Awake. Alric sat up in the recovery bed, pale but alive, his eyes searching the room like he was remembering how to see. When he saw me, everything in him broke. "Zariah!" His voice cracked. "You did it." "I had to," I whispered. "It's over. The curse. It's gone." He reached for me, but I hesitated. There was no spark, no electric pull between us anymore. The bond was truly severed, and yet, the love remained. He could see it too. Tears filled his eyes. "You broke it. For you. I would have died with you. I wanted you to live." He pulled me into his arms, pressing his forehead against mine. "You may have broken the bond, but you didn't break us." I didn't realize I was crying until his hands caught my tears. We weren't bonded anymore, but we had chosen each other, again, freely, and that was the strongest kind of love of all. Chapter 16. Mated by choice. Loved by fire. They called it the trial of flame. In ancient shifter tradition, it was the final judgment, an open challenge where 2 alphas clashed before the pack to settle succession. No titles, no bloodline, only strength, truth, and fire. Kalon called for it. Coward that he was, he waited until Alric was still recovering, his voice smug as he stood atop the moonstone steps, dressed in ceremonial leathers, backed by the bitter few loyalists still clinging to the old ways. "Your alpha is weak," Kalon shouted, his voice echoing across the Silverfang Valley. He was cursed, nearly killed by a witch-born mate, and now he returns without a bond. That is not strength, it's sentiment. He is no longer worthy. The crowd murmured. Some looked at Alric with doubt. Others looked at me. Because they knew. I was that mate, a cursebreaker, a witchblood, an outsider who dared to love their alpha. Alric stood without his mark, no longer glowing with bond energy. Yet there was something fiercer in him now. A man who had chosen love despite every cost. A man who had bled for it. His voice was low but unwavering. I don't need a bond to lead. I don't need prophecy or bloodlines. All I need is this. He pointed to his chest, and the pack I would die for. Then he looked at me, and in front of everyone he said, and the woman I would live for. My breath caught. The crowd fell silent. Kalon sneered. Then come and prove it. It was brutal, faster than any sparring match. Feral, wild, no rules. Alric shifted mid-lunge, fur tearing through his clothes as his alpha wolf exploded out of him in a burst of white-silver power. Kalon met him with a snarl, darker, built more like a beast, with claws tipped in obsidian. They tore through the earth, claws sparking off stone, their snarls like thunder. I stood at the edge of the ring, heart thundering, barely breathing. Lyra gripped my arm, whispering prayers to the moon goddess under her breath. Every strike Alric made was strategic, deliberate. Kalon was chaos, fueled by fury, arrogance, and a hunger for power. But Alric was fighting for us, for his pack, for a future chosen by heart, not blood. The fight reached its peak when Kalon managed to pin Alric beneath his bulk, jaws inches from his throat. A gasp echoed through the crowd. See? Kalon roared. Weak! But Alric didn't fight, he smiled, and then... boom! His aura exploded, not with bond energy, but with pure, unfiltered alpha will. It slammed into Kalon like a shockwave, forcing him back. Before Kalon could recover, Alric surged up, slammed him to the ground, and sank his claws just deep enough to mark dominance without killing. Kalon whimpered. He yielded. And the crowd erupted. After the trial, there was silence in the valley. Then Alric turned to the people, his voice carried like rolling thunder. I am your alpha, not because of a curse, not because of blood, but because I chose this pack, and if you choose me back, then stand. Right now. One by one they did, and then he looked at me. Zariah Isolde, I failed you once, I let the world break you, I let my fear choose for me, but I'm not afraid anymore. My heart thundered. He stepped toward me slowly, his voice lower now. I don't want a bond to force you to stay. I don't want prophecy or fate. I want you, your fire, your fury, your sass and your stubbornness. I want to build a life with you because we chose each other. Will you be my Luna? By choice? For a long moment, I couldn't breathe. Then I smiled, trembling, and walked right up to him, cupped his jaw and whispered, only if I get to bite you first. The crowd howled in approval. Later that night, after the feast, the wine, and the firelit dances, the rain came. Alric and I stood beneath it, alone in the garden behind the moon court. My dress clung to my skin, his shirt half undone, hair wet, lips parted, and we kissed like it was the first time. Desperate, free, hot and slow and full of years of aching. His hands cupped my face like I was the most fragile treasure, and then they traveled, sliding down my back, gripping my hips, pulling me flush against him. I gasped into his mouth. I don't have a bond to hide behind anymore, he growled against my throat. You sure you're ready for the real me? Alric, I moaned as his hand slid under my dress. I've been waiting for you since the day you rejected me. And then he kissed me again. Not like a prince or a cursed alpha, but like a man finally allowed to love without fear. We made love right there, in the rain, on the stones where the moon once cursed me, his body covering mine, his voice whispering my name like prayer, every stroke making me believe in magic again. Because this time, we weren't fated, we were chosen. Epilogue. 3 moons later I'm going to murder him, I said, waddling into the moon court, clutching my swollen belly. Lyra choked on her drink. You're literally glowing. That's not the face of murder. That's the face of someone who's been spoiled with foot rubs and midnight mango cravings. I glared. He did this to me. I think you did that to you. Pretty sure you pounced on him that night in the rain. Alric walked in at that exact moment, holding a plate of hot fried fish and a mango smoothie. Did someone mention mangoes? I melted. Ugh, I hated him. I loved him. He knelt, kissed my belly, then kissed me. Luna, my heart, my fire. And the little pup inside me kicked like they knew their name. Chosen love, chosen pack, chosen future. Not a curse, a miracle. And this time, no one could take it from me. The end. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you loved it, kindly comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more amazing content. Drop a comment with your favorite moment, and I'll see you in the next one.